Quantum of Solace is a spy film and stars Daniel Craig. First off, I have to apologize to Live and Let Die, Moonraker, and A View to a Kill, as what I said about them being the bottom of the barrel and the worst of the franchise is no longer true. Having revisited Quantum of Solace a few days before I decided to record this video, my opinion has greatly changed, and this film is now for me the absolute worst of the entire franchise, and the one film that got me the most frustrated. After seeing the fantastic Casino Royale and going into this film when I first saw it in 2008, my first thought was, how could they screw this up? And when I saw the film, I didn't hate it, but I knew it wasn't a great movie. But I definitely saw it as a letdown, and it somewhat crushed my interest in the series. And over the years, when I would watch a Bond film, I would try to avoid this film, as it was just not worth the viewing. But when I had to watch the film for this review series, I was super hesitant to come back to it. After finally watching it, this is so much worse than I remember. As soon as the movie starts, we get the first sign that shows that this is not going to be a good movie, and that is with the opening. The opening car chase has some of the worst editing I have ever seen. The shots keep cutting to a new shot every second, which makes it quite difficult to tell what is going on. The camera work as well doesn't help, and it makes it difficult to keep track of the characters and where the hell they are. And unfortunately, all the action scenes throughout the rest of the film are like this. Speaking of the action scenes, these are the core problem of the film. The film's main goal is to be an action film first and a Bond film second, which is such bullshit. So with the film's main priority being the action stuff, it sacrifices its characters and story, just so it can prove that its action scenes are awesome, which, like I said earlier, they are poorly done because of the editing and the cinematography. The pacing of Quantum of Solace is frenetic, as every 5 minutes we go from one action scene to another without ever giving the audience a moment to breathe or absorb what is happening. The film also isn't very long, going almost 100 minutes, and not once during that runtime did I have a shred of care for what was going on. I really didn't like the characters this time around. James Bond becomes rather unlikable as his actions and goals kinda makes him a dick, and I found it hard to be on his side despite him being the protagonist. Both the Bond girl and the villain also sucked, with their main issue being they were underdeveloped. However, they could have been improved if more time was devoted to them and their characters were more interesting. Another thing that was also disappointing was this film tries to directly connect with the previous film by acting like a sequel with a continuing story. And while the older Bond films had storylines that led into the future films, they weren't essential storylines that required the viewer to watch all the Bond movies in order. This is what the Bond films have always been like. Films that tell a one-off story so you could jump into any Bond movie and not worry about anything that happened in the previous film. But with Quantum of Solace taking place directly after Casino Royale, there comes an expectation where this film should act like a direct sequel, but it still tries to act like its own story, which it doesn't pull off, as you're still required to remember what happened in the previous movie. The next film, Skyfall, thankfully goes back to being its own one-off story, with no previous required viewing of the other films. Overall, this film is absolute garbage, and is far worse than I remember. From the shitty editing, cinematography, characters, action scenes, and forgettable story, this film is an absolute train wreck. The only things I can really say positive is the film's music is not that bad, and the acting at the very least was fine. It was just the characters that sucked. And I'm gonna give Quantum of Solace a 2 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my channel below. As always, I'm NETX5. Thank you for watching.